Hi there, welcome back. This will be a continuation of that 10th video that I made. I had been fired from the boatyard. I was currently unemployed. I had been looking for work. I was constantly looking for work. It was difficult. I began doing work with a political action committee. It was and I put a lot of time into that. I worked with them for, I think, maybe around a year. I'd kind of like to talk about them, but I don't want to waste much time. Maybe later on, if I have enough time at the end, I'll jump back in and talk about those guys. I ended up leaving. I was very unhappy with the level of integrity that this committee had, and I would like to talk about that, but I'm not going to. While I was looking for work, my girlfriend at the time had taken on a client. She had responded to a Craigslist. There was a couple who she began doing work for on a variety of different. She was doing all sorts of work for these folks, and she would talk about them, and they were very eccentric, and they were very wealthy. They had an army of people working for them, nannies, cooks, just at every station of, these people did not run their own lives. They paid other people to do everything for them. And I was asked at one point, I think my first involvement with them was they wanted a picnic table built. It was like a prefab table. They just wanted it put together. It wasn't difficult, but my girlfriend at the time said, "Well, my boyfriend's a carpenter. He could do it for you if you want." And so they had me do it. After that point, they began asking me to do more and more, and eventually I became very heavily involved. At some point, my girlfriend became aware of a huge antiques collection that this couple had. This was the woman's project. Her name was Barb. I don't know how long it took her to accumulate this collection, but apparently her goal was to open up a museum, and she had a massive collection. She had really spent a lot of time, and she did have a very big collection. They had wanted the collection to be documented, and I became involved in that documentation process, but the process became much more involved than anyone realized it was going to be. My girlfriend had her career that she was focusing on, and she didn't have any time left to involve herself with these people's affairs. And I ended up taking on sole responsibility of this collection, and it was a massive collection. It was never appraised fully, but it may have been worth between, let's say, $2 or $3 to $5 or $6 million. It was a portion of it was a lot of antique Chinese furniture, hundreds of pieces, about a little over 200 pieces. And then lots of artifacts, tens of thousands of objects. I became tasked with because she didn't know what she owned. She had so much, she didn't know what she owned. So over the course of some time, a year and a half, I spent documenting this entire collection and cataloging it on what was called Picasa, and then became Google a Google storage on the cloud. I documented tens of thousands of individual objects with descriptions, and it was all photography, and that way, once the documentation was done, the Barb was able to look on the Google Docs or Google Pictures. Google Photos, I'm sorry. And before, she had no idea what she owned. When I was finished, she was able to look through any of the objects that she owned, and I was able to retrieve that object within a minute or two. This was it was quite a process. I had to hire a lot of people to do this. I couldn't do it on my own. It cost them, I don't know, maybe over $100,000 just to. I mean, I don't even know. I worked on this for a very long time, and a lot of hands were involved. And I ended up being, since I was solely responsible for this, I became aware of a reputation that this couple had, and that was that they didn't pay people sometimes, and but what I had found was that I was shielding. I had a bit of an insurance policy. I owned all of this intellectual property. The photography equipment was mine. The Google Photos was my account. Everything belonged to me. I shared it with my client. And this documentation process represented probably over $100,000 worth of work done. I was also tasked as a broker for this collection. I had reached out to collectors, all of the important auction houses worldwide. I had tendrils out absolutely everywhere, because she apparently no longer wanted to open up a museum. She wanted to sell this collection, and the deal was I would get 10%, which means that if the collection is worth, let's say, $4 million, that's $400,000 for me. I was very motivated to sell this collection. And at one point, I actually got a wholesale offer. I had accumulated a lot of contacts, and one of my contacts who I'd been dealing with phoned me up and said he had found someone who had seen the collection, because I would offer up the photographs of this collection so that prospective buyers could get a feel for what it consists of. This person wanted the entire collection, and I was very excited. I had been spending on the brokerage aspect of it probably 6 or 8 or so months, This was after I had finished documenting the entire thing. I was then able to move on to that step of trying to sell it. My efforts had finally panned out, and now the way this deal was to go down was we were to make an offer, and then the prospective buyer would decide whether or not that was acceptable, or we would begin a negotiation at that point. A pretty typical, a pretty typical way of striking a deal. My client didn't want to provide the offer first. She wanted this man to provide an offer, and he refused. In the end, they lost that potential sale. What I should have done, actually, is she was so stubborn, and my contact was he was just completely flummoxed by the fact that she was letting this opportunity go, as was I. And what I probably should have done was just to see where it would go, put out a number to this gentleman. Let's say I started out higher. Let's say I started out with $6 million, and then he would provide a counteroffer, and I could have provided her with that counteroffer and see what she thought about that. It would have been dishonest, but in the end, she didn't have to say yes to the deal anyway. She was a very stubborn and foolish person. Really, they were extremely wealthy, but they were not business savvy, and they were very naive. Anyway, that one particular opportunity slipped through my fingers, and I ended up being tasked with building a website to sell the furniture portion of this collection. And I got the website finished, and I had I'm going to pause this for a second. I've lost my train of thought, and I don't want to waste time. I apologize.